Hey listeners, welcome to another episode of Room for Seconds. I'm Justin Egan with Craveworthy Brands, introducing this week's incredible episode. Today we catch up with Gregg Majewski as a guest on Fast Casual Nation, where he speaks to host and fast casual expert Paul Barron. It's a dream come true for most folks to get a chance to speak to Paul, and this conversation does not disappoint. Stay tuned as two of the world's most renowned restaurant moguls get into some of the most meaty topics any aspiring leader in this space would want to know more about. So let's get into it. These are the 3 takeaways from today's episode. Takeaway number 1, what is the brand acquisition strategy? Craveworthy Brands has seen extreme success with their restaurant portfolio because of their visionary approach to the companies they acquire. Listen in as Gregg describes what a brand needs to make it into the Craveworthy portfolio. Takeaway number 2, staying relevant in the restaurant industry. As the consumers change, restaurants will need to adapt to ensure they remain competitive. The positive, according to Gregg, is that even the most powerful, iconic brands have successfully done so. And if they can do it, anyone can remain relevant during shifting times. And takeaway number 3, hospitality as the common thread. Gregg Majewski has built Craveworthy Brands with a litany of restaurant brands that are different from each other. However, under the company umbrella, each brand is charged with keeping classic hospitality principles as a priority during times of technological advancement. So stop what you're doing, listen to this episode, and subscribe to Room for Seconds for weekly inspiration with more content like what you're about to hear. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the episode.
All right, so I want to get Gregg Majewski, of course, is CEO of Craveworthy Brands. Great to have you on the show today.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to this.
All right, so Gregg, first of all, just to kind of get our audience, viewers and listeners, a little bit more aware of what Craveworthy does, let's go through kind of the brand lineup that you guys represent.
So Craveworthy is a platform company that has currently 7 announced brands and 4 unannounced brands in our portfolio, ranging from Asian create-your-own stir-fry to fried chicken.
Yep.
So those brands are Gigan's Grill, BD's Mongolian, Flat Top Grill, Budlong Hot Chicken, Wing It On, Lucky Cat Poke Company, which are all the ones that are announced, and then 4 unannounced that will be announced here before the end of September.
So you got some big announcement coming. All right, well, this is good. We got to get you back on the show for sure then after that occurs. All right, so I got a chance to work with the Baka team early in the birth of Genghis Grill when it was evolving out of when Jeff Sinelli had it. And when I looked at that category, I thought this potentially could have something in terms of especially the fast casual category. And then obviously we saw all the explosion in Mongolian. When you look at that and you guys look at kind of how you go about selecting brands, building brands, what is the one thing you look for?
So we look for brands that have a white space available to them. And it doesn't mean that it has to be a brand that doesn't have a ton of competitors. It has to have white space in the means that you can do it either better or a quick growth with somebody else that has already done it. So I used to Wing It On as a perfect example. What attracted me to that brand was Wingstop did all the hard work in educating the consumer that wings are not just a football food. They spent all the money, they spent all the advertising, they did all the work for us, and the product is okay. Wing It On can benefit from that with an incredible product, an award-winning sauce, and we can go after a giant just like we used to do with Jimmy John's when we went after Subway, and allowed us to be the number 2 player out there without having to educate the consumer on the fact that you can have this great product all the time.
Okay.
They did it for us.
All right, so well, that's a good example with Wing It On. When you look at bringing brands into the portfolio, obviously one of the things is you got to bring the right kind of teams, being able to kind of cross-utilize the expertise. Is that a benefit, or do you feel like that's more of a hurdle that you have to overcome every day?
So we look for brands that have culture in place, where they're the fighter, that they know what they're up against. Those are the only ones I want to partner with.
Okay.
So I won't go and ever acquire a brand that's 100 restaurants that's been around forever, because I can't change culture as fast as I can with a brand that's 50 or 75 and under, where I feel like we can come in, sort of put up my systems and our procedures and give them the wins that they need to get to that next level.
Okay.
So we're very, very conscious on the fact that the brands have got to have some fight in them and not just the evolution of just sitting there forever. And with Genghis, that was a little different because it's been around for so long.
Right.
But where I wanted to take the system and where I wanted to take the brand was nowhere near, but the infrastructure and the point was already there. The customization of that food day in and day out. That's the hottest thing that's out there right now, and they're the only ones that cook to order, that type of system, that I knew I can champion that and get that to the next level.
When you look at demand, consumer demand, obviously customization is a big part of that. You seem to have gravitated to those kinds of concepts. Do you feel like customization is going to continue to be one of the big differentiators in the space?
So the new generation of the consumer, that's the only thing they care about.
Yep.
They want to eat when they want to eat, how they want to eat, and the way they eat, and they don't care what else it's going to be. So back in the day with Jimmy John's, all our sandwiches all came the same. You could take something off. Now our tickets are, yay long, and everyone's adding and subtracting and doing this and that because that's what the consumer expects. So being in that customization field and having brands that help make that even more easy for a consumer is exactly what the population is going to do.
Yeah,
for the next
for sure.
couple generations.
All right, you got a new demographic here starting to develop that we seem to have seen a fairly significant shift in terms of foot traffic in the industry on the data we analyze, mostly from boomers, Gen X, that has moved on to less dining out. And now we're seeing this new emerging class of not only millennial, but also Gen Z and even Gen Alpha starting to migrate into decision process of where I'm going to eat, how often I'm going to eat out. What are you guys seeing in terms of demo around growth in that area, kind of this younger consumer?
I mean, like every restaurant and everyone that's been here before, and McDonald's has done it now multiple times, you've got to stay current and relative to the next great generation. And so you have to find different ways to advertise to them, different ways to reach them, and different ways to serve them. This generation is so much more, I'm going to do it when I want to do it, that the normal peak hours of a restaurant are no longer peak hours. So lunch is no longer lunch and dinner is no longer dinner. They eat when they want to eat. So it's changing the labor model. It's changing how you staff. It's changing how you prepare your food because you can't batch like you used to.
Exactly.
But those are all problems that you have to be anxious to tackle because that's the way it's going to be. And third-party delivery and all those other services that have come in and sort of ramped up in the last 5 years aren't going away. So you got to figure out a way to fight with them and win with them and make that part of your culture.
I'm Gregg Majewski, and I've been a multi-unit operator for 26 years. I know how great it feels owning the right franchise brand, but choosing the right franchisor feels even better. At Craveworthy Brands, our hospitality-driven culture sets us apart because we're invested in your success at every single stage of your journey. We're operators alongside you, paving the way forward to give you a head start on greatness. Start your franchise journey at craveworthybrands.com.
You mentioned something there, I think, that not a lot of concepts have talked about, at least on our shows, and that is this idea of instantaneous, always on, okay, and the ability to not really have day parts anymore. To where are you seeing enough of a trend there that you as an operator can staff it, can be able to handle all the supply chain elements that play into this? What do you see in terms of how brands are going to grow with that kind of demand?
So the brands have got to be nimble and figure out a way to make that work. So we've taken the policy and all that. Hey, let's simplify our restaurants. Let's scale them back. Let's make it where one person can now do the job of 3 people because of how many footsteps they take for each item and stuff like that. We're spending a lot of time in that science to make sure that we're set up for that. So with the prototype that we just rolled out from Genghis, we went from 25 staff on during an hour that we can now run that same kitchen with 4.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, and it was all based on studies of how many steps do you have to take, how do you turn and stuff like that. So we can serve our guests all the time when they're hungry.
Very cool. All right. So being able to expand, this obviously is going to change the ability from a technology standpoint. We'll see a lot more automation. We've already started to see that kind of come into the space. But at the same time, customer service kind of plays into this. It's been one of the kind of the themes that we've been talking about here at this conference at Prosper. When you look at that, the kind of services that you guys offer, whether it's Wing It On or a Genghis or a Flat Top, etc., is it different or is it pretty much kind of synonymous with the brands themselves, or do they have kind of a unique identity for each?
So every brand we have is unique, and every brand that we have has a different service model. But the one common theme that we've stressed in everything that we do is that hospitality is the most important thing we do, and especially now. So we're very lucky when our guest chooses us to eat. and they have a million choices, they have a million ways to do it. We have to go out of our way to make sure the hospitality of the old days is still the hospitality of today, and not take the technology too far where they're feeling it in the front of the house and what they see, because they're choosing to come out for an experience.
Yeah.
That experience isn't hitting a screen and not having an interaction with someone.
Right.
Now, there's people that are on a go and have to have that, but you still have to be able to provide a level of hospitality that they want, because you're charging them more than what they can get at home. So it's that key and that heart of leading with your heart and being present and making sure that they have an experience that's worth what they're paying for.
Yeah.
And so all of my brands are very, very conscious on making sure that's a forefront of what we do every day.
Very cool. All right, so I'm going to talk about some trends, and I want to kind of get your opinion of what you think as to whether or not they're going to continue to succeed, if we'll see some fall off on that. And I want to talk about virtual brands. Do you like this? Do you think it's got legs? What are your thoughts on virtual brands for the future?
I think the virtual brands that came out during COVID are going to change. So there's companies like WowBow that have done it right, that will continue to do it. But the other companies that were out there that were taking 40% of the fees and franchise, the operators were not making any money in it, those are going to go away. You're going to see more companies like ours where you're creating virtual brands for in-house that your restaurants are able to open and operate underneath your umbrella, that's with the same system and the same product and all that, just changed a little bit, where they're only paying their typical royalty fees.
Gotcha.
Those virtual brands are going to continue to be a rival and a part of what we do.
Very cool.
Doghouse does it fabulously.
Yeah. All right, so that's good. I mean, I think with most of these kinds of new age models, they flex a little bit with the demand of the market. You look at that, same thing is kind of, represented in terms of third-party delivery. Some people look at it and say, all right, the fees are getting out of hand. We're starting to see some lift in the menu pricing. You're seeing some consumers now stepping back away from third-party delivery a little bit more. What does third-party delivery's future have, and what do they have to do to make it right in the future?
Third-party delivery is not going away. And as much as they're overcharging and their fees are enormous, the consumer is going to dictate what those fees are long-term going to be.
Yeah.
And when they start dialing it back a little bit, DoorDash and all those other systems, Grubhub, Uber Eats, will get a little scared. And when they get scared, they're either going to try to charge us more, or they're going to realize they're going to have to find another model to make this work.
What do you think they'll do?
At first, they're going to charge us more.
Okay.
I mean, because that's what they always do. But in the long term, they're going to have to realize they're going to have to change too.
Not sustainable.
To continue to get people to come. It's not going away.
Yeah.
I mean, delivery is now part of our DNA and part of our consumers wanting to eat when they want to eat.
Right.
Restaurants also have to be very nimble to know that you can't continue to just raise your price and think, oh, I'm going to make that up because it's going out the door.
Right.
So I've been very lucky in my life that I worked a delivery concept. I know what the true cost of delivery is of a product, and we would run 20, 30% on the delivery labor. So if I'm charging that same price and charging a small delivery fee, I know that's just part of my number. So you're going to see restaurants slowly start to drop their markups to become a little bit more competitive so the consumer has an option to eat.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a big factor with just the consumer demand we've seen in terms of the data for sure.
But they're going to have to realize that what the real cost of that is to get that guest.
Yeah.
And again, I hear people saying, I'm going to start my own delivery. I'm going to do delivery now. You have no idea how big that number is.
Logistics alone.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're 100% better to just run with their service and they have that markup because it's more than what you're going to pay. Yes, but you don't have to have any of the headaches.
Okay. So delivery is, to me, is intriguing because I think it's a culture shift that has obviously occurred with some of the more younger demographic. But then you also look at the interface of how consumers are actually placing the order. Uber Eats, it's almost like its own marketplace. You've got now digital apps for some of the brands which have been very effective of being able to kind of create that first to market or almost what they call first party. Mm-hmm. What do you think is going to happen around mobile? Because mobile has really created kind of this new connection to brands that we didn't have 5 years ago even. Where do you see it going?
The younger generation has no problem having a million apps on their phone. So restaurants are going to continue to progress with that being where we want them to order from. But they're used to it. The older generation, my generation, your generation, I don't like a lot of apps on my phone. So I go to DoorDash. I go to those services because I want to scroll and I'm not going to just pick because I don't want 50 restaurant apps on.
Simplicity.
Right. And so that's the reason I go to them.
Yeah.
But my son has 75 restaurant apps on his phone and thinks nothing of it.
Yeah.
So we're going to focus obviously on them more than we focus on me as a way to attract them.
Yeah. What do you think are some of the opportunities for the industry when you look around building a culture within these brands, with you trying to build the kind of menu matchup for certain demographics? Where do you guys see kind of the next big opportunities?
So I think it's going to be in the restaurants that actually respect and want to treat their customers the way they should be treated.
Okay.
I think restaurants are so nickel and diming everything and looking to raise costs and looking to make sure that they improve their bottom line. It's going to be the restaurants that sort of sit back and realize that we are still responsible for a dining experience.
Yeah.
Quick serve, fast casual, fine dining, whatever it is, it's about that experience that you go and you decide to give for that money. And the restaurants that succeed, look at Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A doesn't have the best sandwich in the world, but their AUVs are through the roof because of the service that they provide and the level that their people are perceiving. By saying thank you to every customer that walks in has resonated. Why would you come back and wait in line there and not go to McDonald's or not go to Jimmy John? It's because you feel like you're being taken care of and that you're appreciated. And that's going to be sort of this next jump for restaurants to understand, is that you have to make your guests feel special. And not just with the price, not with a discount, not with loyalty, but truly by loving the fact that they're
real
in your
hospitality
restaurant.
for sure. All right, Greg, future roadmap for you guys, Craveworthy. Obviously, you got some new brands unmentioned just yet, but what else is on the roadmap for you guys?
So, I mean, we're going to kind of start expanding fast through franchising of all our brands. Later next year, all of our brands will be franchising except 2. We'll continue to look for acquisitions over the next, 2-3 years, with the goal of becoming really a disruptor in the industry on how we do things and how we sort of build up those emerging brands. We're excited about the time. We're excited about the extra revenue we're going to be adding to our restaurants through our virtual brands. We're excited about allowing our franchise base to own all of our brands and not have any non-competes, so they can actually thrive in a DMA and not start just pig-poiting all over the country where you can't operate. And we're excited about making sure that our staff and our teams continue to grow and have opportunities to either with us or with others, because that's truly what's going to make us special, is the fact that my team will go on and be team for Yum and everyone else, because we'll be the best. We'll be the ones they want.
Yeah, for sure. Greg, it's been great having you. Thank you so much for stopping in today. We appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey viewers, thanks again for supporting Room for Seconds. If you found this episode inspiring, interesting, or any bit informative, please hit that little subscribe button down at the bottom so you never miss an episode. In my 26 years in this amazing industry, I've been blessed with incredible mentorship. This show is my way of giving back. Follow me on LinkedIn, search Gregg Majewski, on Twitter, @Gregg_Majewski. If you still have room for more, visit our website at media.craveworthybrands.com. You'll find more videos, shows, notes, blogs, resources, and an easy way to get in touch with the Craveworthy Brands team. I'm your host, Gregg Majewski. Thanks again for tuning in to Room for Seconds.